Okay, my little dice goblins. Today's episode is for you. So, we're going to talk a little bit about role playing. So, grab your dice. Okay, you don't need your dice. I just wanted to show mine. Here's my small bag. Well, here's another bag. Here's my travel bag of dice. Yes, it's full of dice. Anyway, grab your dice. All my friendly little dice goblins out there and role players and people who like to participate in an engaging game of, for the sake of familiarity, I will probably say Dungeons and Dragons, although there are many options that are not just Dungeons and Dragons. So, welcome to The Pirate Therapist, where we will explore the heart and the mind and the stories that help us feel a little more human. I am your host, Lee Perry. Today, we're venturing into a world of imagination, friendship, and growing. A world where we have role-playing games and how that affects us. Now, you might think that role-playing games are just a game, a group of people rolling dice and pretending to be elves or wizards or warriors. But what if I told you that it's also a tool for understanding ourselves, for building confidence, facing fear, and finding connection? In this episode, we will explore how role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons can support our mental health, why our imagination matters, how storytelling builds empathy, and how even a fantasy adventure can help us grow stronger in real life. So grab your dice and roll for initiative. I got a 3, so maybe I should go take a nap while you all go. Hang in there. We'll get started. What if healing could happen through imagination? What if we could grow through imagination? Through dragons, through quests, and stories that let us become anyone or anything that we dream of. Today, we're going to explore how role-playing games, how they help us. They encourage us to grow, to explore, to try new things. They help us look at new obstacles to problem solve. They remind us that sometimes the best way to understand real life is to imagine another one. When was the last time you played? Truly played? Not just relaxed or watched something, but really played. Laughing freely or pretending to be somebody else where you imagined or created something just for the sake of it, just for the sheer joy of creation. For most of us, that kind of play fades somewhere between childhood and adulthood. We trade in costumes for calendars, storybooks for schedules, but the need to play, the instinct to create and imagine, it never really leaves us, but it does get quiet. So let's talk about why play matters. Play is one of the brain's favorite ways to learn, adapt, grow. It's how we first discover the world, testing limits, trying new roles, taking risks safely. Psychologists such as Dr. Stuart Brown, the founder of the National Institute for Play, describe play as a biological drive as essential to health as sleep or nutrition. He found that adults who stop engaging in playful activities often show higher stress levels, reduced creativity, and even symptoms of burnout and depression. Play helps keep our minds flexible. It helps us to process emotion without the pressure of performance. It gives us permission to imagine, and in imagination, we often find freedom. And that's where games like Dungeons and Dragons come in, because while we might not crawl around playgrounds anymore, role-playing games invite us back into that same creative state, but with an adult depth and meaning. So in D&D, you get to imagine worlds, build stories, and live out adventures that echo the things that we face in real life: fear, loss, courage, connection, but you do it safely through the eyes of a character. It's a unique blend of structure and freedom. There are rules and dice to guide the story, but within those boundaries, your imagination is limitless. And that's what makes it so powerful for mental health. It's safe exploration, a rehearsal for life. through story. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to play, to imagine, to create, to be silly or to be brave or just curious? Think about what would happen to you if you let that part of yourself come alive again, because that spark, that joy in play, that's where growth often happens. Next, we're going to dive into the world of role playing and explore how role playing games create a space where imagination meets psychology and where pretend becomes a pathway to real emotional growth. Cooperative storytelling, that's what role playing is. It's where we get together with somebody and we create a story. We have someone who takes the lead, but every player in the role playing game has something to add to that story, something to add to that world. Everyone takes on a role and they work together to overcome challenges. It creates a space, role playing does, it creates a space between reality and fantasy, a safe zone where we can have emotions and identities and social roles. It's comparable to art or theater or therapy, where pretend becomes a way to access our real truth. So let's talk about a world of role play. If you've ever played D&D, here's the simplest way to think about it. It's a game of collective storytelling where a group of people sit together, they imagine a world, and live inside of it through the characters they create. There's a guide in D&D. He's called the Dungeon Master, or she. It could be the Game Master if it's not. If it's a different role-playing game, doesn't matter. But this person is kind of the leader. They're the master storyteller, if you will. And they will describe the world and the challenges ahead. And then there are players, each with their own unique characters who decide what to do next. Together, they build a story, one choice at a time. There's no winning, there's no losing. It's creating, it's imagining, it's connecting. What makes role playing so powerful is that it feels like pretend, but it's more than that. When you step into a character's shoes, you're not just escaping reality, you're experimenting with it. You get to explore sides of yourself that might be hidden or silenced in your daily life. Maybe you play someone brave when you often feel anxious. Maybe you're a healer when you often struggle to help yourself in real life. Maybe you try on being a leader or a wanderer or a dreamer, and in doing so, you learn something about who you are and what you need. Psychologists call this projection and safe distancing. It's the same principle behind drama therapy, where people use acting or role play to explore emotions and trauma and relationships in a protected way. By filtering experience through a character, we create an emotional distance, which lets us see our feelings more clearly and process them without becoming overwhelmed. Role playing games are, in a sense, improvised theater for the soul. You don't need a stage, your imagination is the stage. You don't need a script, just curiosity and courage. As you play, something remarkable happens. Your brain starts to blur the line between pretend and real. When your character feels fear, you might feel your heart race. When they triumph, you might feel joy. When they lose something, you might even grieve with them. And those emotions, though imagined, are real experiences for your brain. They create neural patterns that help you practice resilience, empathy, problem solving in a safe and creative space. Games like Dungeons and Dragons give people a chance to try on parts of themselves that they might never explore otherwise. It's like holding up a mirror to your inner world and seeing both who you are and who you could become. In a way, that's the deepest magic of role play. It reminds us that our identities are stories too. Just like any story, we have the power to rewrite them. So when you sit around a table, rolling dice and telling stories, you're not just playing a game. You're doing something profoundly human. You're connecting, you're imagining, and you're growing through the process of creating a story. In the next bit, we're going to go deeper and we're going to explore the psychological benefits of role play and how this kind of creative play can build confidence, empathy, and emotional resilience in our everyday life. So, here's where we go deeper into the science and emotional healing aspects. Social connection. Role playing builds empathy and cooperation because characters have to work together to overcome challenges and complete quests, if you will. They have to work together to overcome whatever the master storyteller puts in their path to make it challenging and exciting, especially when powerful for people who feel isolated and socially anxious. Role playing is very powerful for them because it allows them to express themselves, to step out of their comfort zone, perhaps without so much anxiety, and be more them. Role playing allows characters to let players express feelings that they might and often repress in real life. Grief, anger, bravery, love. Someone playing a courageous warrior may slowly internalize that confidence. It gives us a cognitive flexibility. It encourages creative problem solving and adaptability. It teaches us to look for creative solutions. A good game master, a good storyteller can really make you stretch your imagination to come up with new ways and new ideas to overcome challenges. This makes it both engaging and fun. It's exciting and it's exercise for our brains and creates that cognitive flexibility. It trains our brains to think in possibilities, not in limitations. In psychology, narrative therapy helps people reframe their stories. In role playing games, we do this naturally. Players, they rewrite who they can be. Every session becomes a metaphor for resilience, teamwork, and purpose. By now, you've probably figured out that role-playing games like D&D aren't just a pastime. They're kind of psychology in motion, a living, breathing experiment in emotion, identity, and connection. So let's talk about what's really happening when we gather around a table and start to imagine. What's going on inside of our minds, our hearts? What's going on with the inner clockwork workings of our brain? What's happening? One of the first things people notice when they play role playing games is how it draws people together. Every campaign begins with a group of strangers with character sheets, and somehow over time, they become kind of a family. People start to laugh together, problem solve together, and they tell a story that belongs to everyone. This kind of cooperative play activates parts of the brain linked to empathy, trust, and bonding. Neurochemically, shared laughter and teamwork releases oxytocin, which is the same hormone that strengthens connection and reduces stress. For people who struggle with social anxiety and loneliness, the D&D table can be a lifeline. It offers structure for interaction. You always have a reason to speak, a role to play, a mission to share. Some part of that mission or quest that you're on, everybody needs to participate in. And that makes that connection feel safe and inclusive, even for those who have felt disconnected for a long time. Something fascinating about role playing is that people often express emotions that they can't. Maybe they don't have the words, maybe they don't feel safe to do so, but it allows them to express those through a character. A player who feels powerless might create a bold, confident warrior. Someone who has lost a love might play a character on a quest for meaning. And when those characters face fear and love, and loss and triumph, those emotions that surface are real. It's what psychologists call emotional transference, feelings that begin in fiction but help release or process something true. In this way, role playing games become a form of emotional rehearsal. You practice bravery, compassion, sacrifice. Your brain learns that those experiences, what they feel like. The more you play, the more your emotional vocabulary grows. That's one of the more powerful foundational pieces that relate to real life mental health. Let's not forget how much mental flexibility role playing demands. In a single game, you might solve a riddle. You might have to think strategically how to get out of a situation where maybe going toe to toe with a monster may not work out for you. So you have to find a way to get out of it, disengage, or defeat the enemy through means other than direct conflict. We have to navigate a conversation with a dragon, perhaps, or a diplomat. Not everything is resolved through fighting. Every one of these moments strengthens executive function, your ability to plan, to focus, to adapt. Research on play and creativity shows that open-ended games like role-playing games, they enhance problem-solving skills and cognitive flexibility. It helps players think outside the box, both in the game and out of the game. Essentially, you're training your mind to see possibility, not limitation. In the world of psychology, there's a therapeutic approach called narrative therapy. It's based on one simple but powerful idea: we understand ourselves through stories. When someone's been through trauma, grief, or struggle, their inner story can become one of shame or helplessness. But in role playing games, you get to craft a different narrative, one where you face challenges, grow stronger, and ultimately overcome. Each time your character survives something hard, your mind rehearses resilience. Each time you act with courage or kindness, you affirm a story of agency. I can do this. I can be brave. And then, even though it's a fantasy, your brain doesn't fully distinguish between real and imagined triumphs, not in the feelings. That's why role play can lead to real growth, real healing, because there's a lot of transfer back and forth between the pretend world and the real world. At its heart, role playing games create a space where people can safely explore who they are and who they might become. It's a world where you can fail without shame, try again, and still be supported by your party. It's that kind of safety, that emotional safety. That's one of the most healing experiences the mind can have. So when we talk about role playing games changing their lives, people aren't exaggerating. It's not just the dice or the dragons. It's the connection, the imagination, the chance to be seen and heard even behind a character's mask. Through story and play, people rediscover something that we all crave: belonging, expression, and purpose. That's what mental health is built on. This community of imagination, it often becomes something bigger, kind of a chosen family, a circle where we grow together. A reminder that sometimes the path out of loneliness begins with rolling the dice, taking a chance. So there's something almost magical about role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. It starts simply: a few people gathered around, dice in hand, a character sheet, maybe snacks, always snacks in my case, but you just kind of spread these around a table and you sit together. Laughter becomes more natural. Inside jokes are born. Stories intertwine, not just between characters, but between the players. And that's when the game becomes something bigger. It becomes a community. Beings are wired for connect. Sorry. Human beings, let me try that again. Human beings are wired for connection. Yes, and I will argue with the introverts. You still need people in your life. Our brains need it. We require it. We are social creatures. We need community for safety, for happiness, for health. When we are part of a group, the body releases chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine that calms our nervous system and it boosts our mood. But when we're isolated and we're lonely, the opposite happens. Our stress hormones rise, our thinking becomes more rigid, and we start to pull away even more. A D&D group can gently undo that pattern, because at the table, you're not just yourself, you're also a hero, a rogue, a healer, a wizard, a knight. Anyway, somehow that makes it easier to connect. You laugh, you talk, you collaborate, and before you know it, you belong. It's a community disguised as play, and for many people, that's the first step towards healing loneliness. Something powerful happens when people build a good story together. Every decision, every risk, each moment of laughter creates a shared emotional memory. When your party defeats a dragon, it feels like we did that. When a character sacrifices something to save another, we feel that courage. And when someone's character dies, we grieve, not because it's real, but because it represents something that is love and connection and loss, and we can all relate to that. Through storytelling, players practice empathy without even realizing it. They learn what it feels like to step into someone else's perspective, to care about someone else's struggle, and that empathy doesn't stay on the table. It travels outward. It goes home with you. It goes to your families, your friendships, and the way we see the world. In role playing groups, it's common to see people open up over time. Sometimes a quiet player begins to speak more confidently. Sometimes someone uses humor to mask real pain and finds gentle acceptance anyway. Sometimes a player's character faces something the person themselves has never had words for. The group becomes kind of a mirror, reflecting courage and vulnerability and connection back to each person. It's not therapy, but it is very therapeutic. In fact, some therapists have started using Dungeons and Dragons in group therapy settings, especially with teens and trauma survivors. Why? Because the game naturally builds trust. Players learn to collaborate, to share space, to navigate emotions safely, all through a lens of fantasy in a world where so many people feel unseen. That kind of shared story can be profoundly healing. There's a quiet reverence that often grows in long term groups. The table becomes something sacred, a circle of imagination where everyone is safe to bring their whole self, even the parts that they usually hide. Week after week, people come back not just for the story, but for each other, to be together, to meet with their community, to laugh, to connect, to belong. And in that belonging, growth takes root, softly, almost invisibly, like a candle that is burning in the dark. Maybe that's what we're all searching for, a place where we can be seen, where we can belong, where our stories matter, where we can grow with people that are close to us, that understand us. In a world of role play, that place just happens to be a table covered in dice and character sheets and imagination. But at its core, it's the same thing we all need: connection, trust, and a reminder that we're not alone. So every quest is kind of a metaphor. When we face dragons or monsters, we're facing fears. Failure in the game teaches us resilience. Collaboration reminds us that no one heals alone. The magic of the game world helps players discover real world courage and empathy. Through fantasy, through pretend, we are rehearsing reality. We're trying things out that is safe to do so without potentially risking something that we're afraid to risk in the real world. Every story in a role playing game, every quest, every battle, every moment of choice mirrors something about the human experience. The game may take place in a world of fantasy, of magic, but at its core, it's about the same things we all face: fear, courage, loss, friendship, and the search for meaning through those adventures. Something powerful happens. We start to see reflections of our own lives in these stories that we're telling. In fantasy, the dragon is a symbol of everything that frightens us: the unknown, the overwhelming, the impossible. I heard an interesting story once about Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. When he wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, he was writing about his experiences in the World War. And there were direct comparisons between Smaug the dragon and some of the things he saw. I can't remember exactly what the comparison was, but it was something he saw. It was flamethrowers. I'm not sure. But the story was fascinating, how he compared and wrote about his experience in the war in a fantasy framework. When players face a dragon in the game, they might feel nervous, but they also learn to lean on each other, to plan, to act despite the fear. That's the essence of courage, not the absence of fear, but moving forward even when fear is present. And then when we succeed, it's more than the victory on the character sheet. It's a small rehearsal for real life bravery. It's a reminder that fear doesn't mean you can't move forward. It just means you're human. Every player in role playing game is the hero of their own narrative, flawed, growing, learning, changing. We make mistakes, we fail, we fall down, but then we get up again. That cycle, that struggle, failure, growth, it's the same one we live every day. The difference is that in the game, we see it more clearly. We recognize that failure is part of the story, it's not the end of it. And that realization can shift how we see our own lives. We start to understand that our hardships don't disqualify us from being a hero. That's part of the hero's journey. We get to do that. One of the most transformative parts of role playing is learning to think that and feel like someone else. When you play as your character, maybe a gentle giant or a mischievous bard or a wise old wizard, you begin to see the world through their eyes. You consider their fears, their hopes, their wounds. That builds empathy, a deep understanding that everyone has a story, even those who seem different or difficult. That kind of perspective taking is powerful beyond the table. It teaches compassion in real life, in relationships, in workplaces, in our families, in our communities. Because when you've practiced walking in another's shoes, it's harder to judge and easier to love. Stories are how our brains make meaning. They help us organize chaos into understanding. And in role playing games, every quest becomes symbolic. Every journey is an echo of something deeply human. The cave might represent fear of the unknown. The lost kingdom might symbolize a part of yourself that you've abandoned or forgotten. The quest for healing might mirror your own journey towards self acceptance. And when your character finally finds peace or redemption, part of you does too. Because our minds don't separate symbolic healing from emotional healing. They're the same language spoken in different ways. When players finish a campaign, they often talk about feeling changed, more confident, more open, more capable. They they are proud about their characters' accomplishments. That's because they've practiced being brave and kind and creative in a safe world. They've learned to trust their instincts and rely on others and solve problems that they never thought they could, and those lessons carry forward. The courage you found in the dungeon, perhaps that you bring that into your next hard conversation. The kindness you showed your party, you bring that into your friendships. The resilience you build when the dice did not go your way. I know that very well. You carry this through real life setbacks. Role play teaches us freedom, the freedom to imagine a different version of ourselves and then become it. In the end, role playing games aren't just about dragons or magic, it's about transformation. It's about the stories we tell and the way those stories reshape who we are. Every quest is a mirror, every victory a reminder that even when life feels uncertain, we have more courage and creativity than we realize. And maybe that's the real magic of the game, that it helps us remember we can always begin again. We can always roll the dice and take a chance on hope. At its heart, Dungeons and Dragons isn't about dragons or dice. It's about people. It's about stories. It's about courage and imagination. And maybe that's what healing is too. Learning to rewrite your story, learning to see ourselves as the heroes of our own journey. So, whether you've never rolled a die in your life or you've got a character sheet ready to go, remember this: every time you dare imagine, you're giving your mind a way to heal and grow, a chance to dream again. Every good adventure comes to an end, not because the story is over, but because the heroes have changed. And that's what role playing games and storytelling itself is really about: transformation. When we sit around a table and imagine worlds together, we're not just escaping reality, we're exploring it. We're testing our strength, our courage, our compassion in a space where failure is safe and creativity is limitless. Every time we pick up the dice, we're saying one thing: I'm willing to try. And in that willingness, the spirit of curiosity and hope, that's what keeps us growing. To fail is to not try. So perhaps pick up your dice and try. There's something extraordinary about the imagination shared between people. A group of friends sitting together, telling a story that never existed before, never will again in the same way. That story belongs only to them. And in it, something sacred happens. People feel seen, heard. They feel a sense of belonging. The shy player who finds their voice through a bold and fearless character. The anxious friend who laughs for the first time all week. The person who feels invisible, who suddenly realizes that their choices matter. Imagination creates belonging, and belonging heals. We often think healing has to be serious. Quiet rooms, deep talks, hard work. Yes, healing can be those things, but it can also be joyful. It can be the sound of laughter echoing around a table, or feel like the thrill of victory when your team pulls off something that seemed impossible. Play lets us reconnect with the parts of ourselves that adulthood sometimes buries: courage, curiosity, creativity, and joy. Those parts are medicine. They remind us that we're more than our stress and our sadness. They remind us that it's okay to feel alive again. When the game ends, the real adventure begins. The one within you, because what you learn through play doesn't stay on the table. It follows you through your relationships, through your work, your dreams. The same courage that faced a dragon can help you face a difficult conversation. The same empathy that helped you heal a character's backstory can help you understand a loved one's pain. And that same imagination that built worlds can help you rebuild your own life. When you realize you're capable of creating an entire universe in your mind, you start to believe that you can reshape the one that you live in. Maybe the most beautiful lesson in all of this: every one of us is a living story. And like every story, it's full of mystery, struggle, and change. Sometimes the road feels dark and uncertain, but that's when the hero, you, grows stronger. You don't need to slay dragons to be brave. Just keep showing up. There is success in merely that, showing up and trying, even when you don't know what comes next. Because every step you take is part of a quest. Every small act of kindness, every spark of creativity, every choice to hope, it turns to hope instead of despair. That's you leveling up. The truth is, the adventure never really ends. It changes shape. It moves from the table in front of you to the heart, from imagination to action, from fantasy to real life. And maybe that's what role playing games and storytelling in general have always been trying to tell us: that even in the darkest dungeons, light can be found, that we're not alone in our journey, and that every day we have a chance to write a new chapter, one filled with courage and laughter and love. So wherever you are, whatever quest you're on, remember, you are the hero of your story. Keep grabbing those dice, keep coming back and trying again. Your adventure is just beginning. Thank you for joining me today on today's adventure, a journey through imagination and courage and connection. If this episode reminded you of the power of play, how laughter and storytelling and creativity can heal and help you grow, I hope you'll carry that with you into your own world. Because the truth is, every day offers us a new quest: to be kind, to be brave, to try again, to keep imagining a better version of ourselves. And remember, your story matters. You don't need monsters or magic to be a hero in your life. You just need to keep showing up. Believe that you can change the story when you need to. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with someone who might need a little wonder in their day. And as always, thank you for listening and for being a part of this growing community of dreamers and doers, all around amazing collection of incredibly diverse and unique humans. You guys are amazing. So until next time, keep your heart open, your imagination alive, and your courage ready. Your adventure is just beginning.